Yeah, cut it down to like, I mean, if you can get what I'm saying down to like 3 minutes, I think that's the that's the sweet spot.
Anyway, thanks for dropping in. Today we're doing something a little different. We're gonna have a chat, little chat time with a self-proclaimed music snob. So it's gonna be like Snob versus Douche. This is Matt, the snob. We're gonna call him
Yep.
Snob. Snob? Is that good?
You can call me Snob for short. You know, over the years that I've referred to myself as a music snob, um, I feel like there's been a bit of an awakening. I'm not as much of a snob anymore. I'm more of just a nerd.
Okay.
I got to be honest. I'm a music nerd. You know, we used to work at a radio station and in the music department, and I still actually review music. I don't know if that's shocking to you, but the method by which we reviewed music in the music department is still my main method
You have
of
track
listening
numbers
to
and you
music.
circle them and
Well,
like
no, I don't write it
the
out.
better
It's all
tracks.
digital. It's all digital now because not only am I a music nerd, I'm also a tech nerd. So I have a program called J River Media Center. Big shout out to them, a great company out of
Okay.
Minnesota.
Okay.
Media Center allows you to set custom metadata for any song. Obviously, MP3s have tags and all that fun stuff, but you can go in there and mess with it. So, it's the star system to rate songs, and then I still do the other stupid crap that we used to do there, just because it changed it programmed me to enjoy music a certain way working at the radio station, and I
Yeah.
don't feel like I've fully absorbed the album until I've actually reviewed it. Is that crazy?
It is a little crazy.
Yeah, I know. So as I was saying, music nerd, not music snob. Well, I mean both, but still reviewing music just like we did back in the music department. I don't know why. It's just the way my brain works. It's the way I enjoy music now, and it makes the year end list super simple. I
Yeah.
still even tag all the songs that have bad words in them. It's just out of habit, and I guess I have this dream that I'll create my own radio station at some point, and
Okay.
I'll just be able to know which ones. I mean, it comes in handy if I'm making a playlist for work or something like that. I can filter out all the nasty shit and stop it from playing.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
that seems reasonable. Seems reasonable.
probably
Yeah.
not.
So yeah. So anyway, so yeah, that's how I know this snob is from back in the day working at a radio station together and also at a record store together. How long would we overlap at that record store?
I
Just a
I
couple
think
years?
I worked there only 2 years,
Okay.
and I look back on it and I'm like, wow, that was such a cush job. I mean, seriously, we just sat.
And
It was
listen to
usually
music all
around
day.
what the shifts would start at like 4 or 5. We'd sat around for like 4 hours, and we'd do ring a few people up and just bullshit. It
Yeah.
was good times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard to complain about getting paid to listen to music all day. Um,
exactly. Yep.
so anyway, I haven't talked to you in I don't know, 16 years, 15 years.
I mean, we've
Who
certainly
knows?
texted, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but
not face to
actually,
face, Zoom or in person otherwise.
yeah,
Um, I would never come to your state, so
yeah,
no,
that's
I'm
fair.
just kidding.
So, so how this came about is that you saw my top albums of 2022
Yeah,
list,
well,
and you
from
decided you
working at the
wanted
radio
to like
station.
you decided
Yeah,
you
from
wanted
working
to lay into me on that. So
from working at the radio station, that's a habit that I got into, making the top 20 list every year.
Yeah.
That's something I've been doing for 20 years. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but I did notice that you at least have done a couple, well, the last couple years, right?
In these video type lists, I've just done a couple.
Yeah.
In the past, I'm kind of off and on. I'm definitely not as consistent and dedicated as you
Professional
are.
douche. I think you
Yeah.
referred to it. Yeah, as professional douche, which I appreciate. I'm completely a professional douche in that way. But yeah, I mean, overall, I enjoyed your list. We share musical tastes for the most part. You dip into a little bit more of the, I don't know. You're just more aware of the indie pop, especially nowadays. I don't, now that I'm so far away from radio station and record store, uh, I'm just completely unaware of anything that isn't a band I already know on a label that I know I really like Sub Pop or whatever, or that comes out at me from some bullshit at NPR or something like that. So I do feel like I'm missing a chunk of independent music out there. Certainly saw a big chunk in your list. I mean, 75. I mean, come on. Um, 75. How do you even do that in 2 years? I mean, since I'm a geek and a nerd, I know that I had 89 releases that I reviewed from 2022. Um, I wouldn't, I only put 20 on, maybe another 10 were decent enough to make a list. How do you, with good conscience, make up a list of 75 albums?
I listen to a lot of albums. I always,
And
I've always been like an album type person too. And
yep,
in this, so if you go back to, going back to when we worked at a radio station, we had that access. I think that for a
yep,
lot of people, you don't have, like, that's the key to be able to listen to all this music. And now you can stream anything. You can go to Bandcamp and listen to anything. Um,
yeah,
it's a matter of having the time, right?
yes,
I don't do this, like, I'm not getting paid to do this.
no,
Um, so
neither am I.
yeah, so I just really try to listen to as much music as I can. I'm always I also am the kind of person that is always seeking something else.
Yep,
I'm not listening to Led Zeppelin 4, 3 times a week. Like, I'm not that, I'm moving, like,
yeah,
I want something else. I constantly, not that I don't like Led Zeppelin 4. I'm just saying, like, as an
yeah.
example, like
Great album.
some people are very, they stayed, like, they're very, they like what they like since they were 20 or whatever. I'm
Yeah,
always moving on, something else.
yeah. Well, most people, I think, sort of stop seeking out new music, in their 30s, or maybe even 20s.
Yeah.
If you're, and so yeah, I mean, we've always been, and we were maybe trained by where we worked, but seeking out new stuff. But at the level of obscurity of some of these bands that I forced myself to listen to in the past week off of your list. I can name a few that I enjoyed. So high water marks, the high water marks. I was not aware of them. Now they're an offshoot of Apples and Stereo. Am I getting that right?
Yes,
Yes.
that's
Okay. So that
correct.
would make sense.
Yeah.
Were you aware of them before their most recent record, or
Yeah.
how'd you stumble onto them?
I mean, in that situation, it's the connection to the Appleton
It's the
stereo.
connect. Okay, so it's just
Um,
being aware of whatever offshoots there are, and there are a lot.
yeah, I
Elephant
don't
Six.
remember the specific,
Yeah.
I don't,
Well, I have a lot of questions, so you're gonna have to.
I'm sure at some
Honest.
point I saw that Hillary had this other band or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, And then even then, that's not necessarily enough to get me in the door because there's so much stuff coming at me.
Yep.
And so I probably didn't right away, check them out. But the
Yeah.
album before this one and this one, those two, I think are very good, both.
Okay. X Void. Where'd you get that?
So that I think that comes more from
The
the label.
label connection.
So
Okay.
Don Giovanni, there's a bunch of things on that label that
Okay.
I like. So
Yeah.
that also is Joanna Gruesome. Do you know that band? There's a connection there. So there's
No.
so it's not there's I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's just keep on moving here. So Stella
Yeah.
Donnelly.
So she's a Australian like singer songwriter. Australian, yeah. I think that she kind of had a little bit of hype when she first came around. So I read something about
She
her
reminded me of
like years
Courtney
ago.
Barnett. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least in the song that you highlighted there. Well, okay, Elf Power. I mean, I knew about Orchids. The Orchids.
Yeah. So have been around for a long, long time and kind of came back together. So I was aware of them from the 90s.
Okay. Whimsical.
So that I think is it's the combination of a label thing and then also I had been aware of them before. I feel like that might just be like a band camp thing. Like at some point
Okay.
it was recommended and then I became aware of them and then they signed with a label that I like, that Shelf Life Records. And so
Okay.
that's what
Now,
gets it in front of my face or in my ears, I guess.
so I don't spend any time on Bandcamp. Are you spending a considerable amount of time on there?
I used to. I actually I have a lot of issues with it. I'm not going to go into, but I like some amount of the recommendations on there.
Okay. I see. I didn't even know they had recommendations. Personally,
Yeah.
I'm on Spotify. I have a free account on Spotify that I just use to, that's what I use to go through this list and listen to all this stuff. But the way I am, I need to have it personally. So streaming doesn't really work for me, but most of the time.
Right.
Submotile is one of the only ones that I listen to on my list that I wasn't really that into. Where did they come from for you?
That's also, I think
You
they're
remember?
also on Shelf Life. They're also on
They're on
Shelf
Shelf
Life.
Life. Okay. The boys with perpetual nervousness, which is I noticed it was a reference to Feely's song, I think.
That's right.
Where did they come from?
Been aware of them for a while.
Yeah, they had a couple of records, I noticed.
Yeah, and that's, again, there's a lot of labels that I don't necessarily like everything that the a particular label
Yeah.
out, but I at least will check out. And
but how do you remain aware of what they're releasing? I mean, I'll tell you what I do is I actually just go to the Metacritic new record list, and I'll just periodically go through that and look for albums and labels that I like. But I end up missing out on a lot of new indie pop, indie rock, because I don't know that they're actually making.
I think that's where there's a strength with Bandcamp. So like you can follow a label, and then every time they release something, it's gonna show up.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'll swing by there.
It's worth looking at. Like I say, I'm not in there all the time, and I tend to not buy things on there. I do sometimes, but a lot of times, like when you are given a free download, it'll be through Bandcamp. Like you download it through Bandcamp. I get those a lot. So
true.
I have things on
for
there.
The record that you buy.
Yeah.
And that's another question that I had for you is out of the 75 records on your list, how many do you own on vinyl?
Most of them.
Really?
Definitely not all of them, but most of them. More like certainly more than 50 of them.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah. Some of them
that's
aren't.
impressive.
There's a handful, and this is a flaw to the way that I do this. There's a handful that aren't that weren't
They're not
released.
available.
They weren't available.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, and things fall through the cracks. And so sometimes I'll choose to include something like that, and other times I don't. And then the following year I consider it not eligible to be included. If you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's oftentimes
There's
something is
rules.
released digitally in November, and then there's nothing available until physically
The
until
physical release, yeah, it comes out
the
later.
spring. But it's technically the release date is technically November. So I have a weird thing with that. I also another thing about my list is I definitely forgot things, and in between
Yeah.
the time that it was
Well, when
created,
you're doing 75 and you're not actually writing it down.
but so and also like it would be a lot different if I did it today. There would probably be 10 things that would be 10 records not on that list that would
Yeah.
be on there, and then therefore 10 things that would have to come off.
Yeah. Well,
Because I'm
or you could
behind,
just
right? That's
bump it
because
to
I'm behind.
85. Uh,
No, I wouldn't do that. I
oh,
think
okay. That's,
I think you're
I
I think
follow along there.
you're kind of talking me into maybe I shouldn't be doing the list. If you have some, go ahead. I was going to derail us. Go ahead. I know you might have anything else to mention.
I just, so I think you had an of Montreal record on there at number
At the end,
75. I
yeah.
think it was the first one on the list, right?
Yeah.
Now I know you're a big fan, but um, I've been getting more and more to the point where there's certain bands where I feel like they've done it and they don't need to keep on doing it.
So yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So like with the but how about like with the Pixies fall into that?
Well,
Or somebody or like Built to Spill or the new
no,
pornographers who have a new album coming out in a little bit.
no, because I still enjoy every new release, but like the Black Keys, for example, I
Yeah.
like the Black Keys. I mean, they've risen to a level of popularity that for snobs and douches is a bit dangerous.
Uh-huh.
But I kind of feel like it's repetitive at this point. I mean, with blues specifically, when you're dealing with the blues, it's a pretty simple form, so there's not a lot you can do with it. But I think they could probably at least take a few years before they release the next record. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like it almost seems like two a year. And then of Montreal, it just like I just can't keep
Too
up.
many
I mean,
albums. Yeah,
another
too
great
many albums
example.
would be a way to put it, another way to say it. To me, they kind of change a lot between albums. Heath is
Sure.
really just one guy, really. But yeah,
Yep.
and definitely there are some in the mix that I don't care for as much. And this
Yeah.
one, like I say, it's at the bottom and
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be on there if I made this list
Sure.
today, because there's other things that have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm,
I
I'm
mean, another.
behind. I'm behind the curve, I guess is what I'm trying to say here.
Well, it's a lot of records. And if you're actually buying that much vinyl, how much money do you spend on vinyl a year? I mean, you don't have to answer that, but I'm just an amateur collector. I just
Yeah.
started a couple years ago. I've got about, well, of course, I know exactly how many records I have. I have like 122 because I put it all on Discogs. I
Uh-huh.
keep track of it so that when I go to the record store, I know what I already have.
Right.
I've already made it twice now where just recently I looked and I was like, oh, I already have that record, so I don't need to buy it. But
Yeah, that happens.
it seems like you're purchasing an awful lot of vinyl.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair statement.
And I'm not saying you should stop. I'm impressed that you have the time and money to put into it because it is not a cheap hobby.
No,
Just
it
as we were
certainly is
saying
not.
earlier, it's gone up
Yeah,
considerably.
and it just seems to be getting more and more expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, another example of a band that just Like when I see it on the new release list, I'm just like, do we need to do this again? Got to buy Voices. I hate to say it, but
Right. So that's actually, it's good that you mentioned that because I like some of the Guided by Voices records that came out last year,
I do too.
but I'm never because of the volume, it's
Yeah,
hard for me to ever really connect with one of, to connect with one on a higher
a
level, I
full
guess.
album basis. And that's the other thing is that if they're releasing so many records in one year, dude, Robbie, just hold them back, do a little bit of editing, and just went release one. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I guess maybe they must make money off of it because they have such rabid fans. We're probably going to get uh, comments about this because of how insane people are. Uh,
Yeah, no, that's true. There's people that are that are completists certainly for Guided by Voices. Yeah.
yeah, well, they have their jobs cut
And
out for them for sure because yeah, they just won't stop. Um, let's see. So I noticed you had Fontaine's DC on the list. They were under the radar for me for a long time, and I did listen to it, and I do dig it. I also downloaded the Elf Power record because I didn't even realize that was out, so that slipped through the cracks. Which I'm usually pretty good with that band especially. Um, so yeah, but yeah, I mean, I listened through the 14 that I noted, and I downloaded most of them. Good stuff. Smut, um, Northern Portrait, I really liked. Model Shop, Lightning in the Twilight Hour, dumb name, but
yeah, I don't like that name either.
yeah,
I can never remember it. Like I'm always
but
getting it wrong.
yeah, and then the Robin Hitchcock, the new one by him, I downloaded that one too. Obviously I love the Soft Boys, but if you got into him later on, I mean, it's just what does he have? 20 some records.
He has a lot of
Um,
records. Yeah.
it's a tough one to get into, but he actually came. He was doing some like I don't know if they were house shows or small shows. I think it was 2021, and it was in a suburb. It was perfect for me because I don't like going to in the city,
Right.
Chicagoland, all the big venues in Chicago. I don't like getting anywhere near them. But I couldn't do it because
No,
do you still go to shows
I don't
where
go
you're
to
at?
as many as I don't go to as many as I'd like. Um, Partially because it's got to be on a weekend now. I don't want to stay up all
Yeah,
night on a weekday.
nope.
Although I do sometimes. I actually have not gone to a lot since 2020.
Yeah.
Before that, I was
Well, there
going
weren't many up until
right.
2021, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I used to go to like
yeah,
hundreds,
I know.
certainly over 100 a year. It probably,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So nowhere near, nothing like that. Not
yeah,
even close. I wish I could, but I don't have the energy, I guess.
yeah. Neither do I. And I mean, when I was in Minnesota, um, it was easy. But now Chicago, I'm over it. And then I still haven't even been to most of the venues in Chicago, and I feel like a failure for that. But it is what it is. People are gross, and especially with the COVID uh, and everything else that's going around. But anyway, so let's
I actually flew to Los Angeles this year and went to see Suede and Manic Street Preachers like in Hollywood at the Hollywood Palladium. As like so that's the first like that's a bigger venue than I typically go to also, and it's not even that big, but it
yeah,
was packed. Like I was impressed by how many people were there. I thought it was going to be, you know, I guess it's all old people like us. They're going there.
yeah. At this
It was
point,
good. I was
yeah,
glad that I went, but that's kind of an unusual that's the first like packed in with people since I've been to other shows, but they're not like that where you're packed
Yeah.
in like 2,000 people or however many
But
people it is.
but you made it through without getting the vids. I'm asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
seemingly.
Nice. Nice. Okay.
As far as I was not sick, so
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what else do I have to say?
so you post your top 20 on your website um religiously.
Yeah.
How many years have you done that?
Well, I think I have a full 20 years
20
on the
years. You have
website.
20 years of top 20s.
20 years of top 20s on there, but the website, the blog only came into existence in the 2006 or something like that. So um and then the older ones don't have all the bells and whistles that I like to put in there, playlists and links to buy and things like that. And I used to do a lot of I used to do a lot of posts and stuff like that because I was, you know, thought someone wanted to listen. And but I just at this point it's just a place for me to throw the top 20 list, which I do every year. It's a just a little hobby. Keeps me busy towards the end of the year. Gets my mind around what I've listened to and what I enjoyed, so I can kind of get it in my head. So yeah,
So
but go ahead.
what separates? So do you think about? I mean, you're doing like it's a ranking kind of thing. Your top, like these are your 20. You think about it, just your 20 favorite albums of the year. Is that a fair way to state it?
Yeah,
Um, how much separates something like in the top three versus the bottom versus like obviously
yeah,
that's different years. Like how much better is the Beths, your number one,
yeah.
versus
Well,
Spoon
based
at number
on
10?
yeah,
Just
based on
that's
what I've told you, you probably think it's all math, um, right? Because I'm so
right.
professional douchey about ranking everything and stuff like that,
When
but
you listen
it
to an
really
album, do
isn't.
you log it into a spreadsheet?
No, no, it's
No.
all in that app that I use.
Mm-hmm.
And you can generate playlists based on the metadata that you've entered in there,
Yeah.
which I do, but I don't really use it for the ranking. I mean, I could probably turn it into a math equation, but I haven't gone that far yet. I really just I figure out what albums I think are worthy from the year, throw them in a list, and then I just start whittling down that list. Once I have 20, then I just decide, which albums I enjoyed the most. Which for me, the Beths came out on top. But as you were saying, as time goes on, your opinions change a little bit. I probably
Yeah.
would have put what your number one is as number one now, just because I've had more time with it since Always. Do you say Always or Always?
I say always.
You do. Okay. I don't know what the official
I think they say
pronunciation is.
always. I
Always,
think they just spell it that way so you can find it.
yeah, yeah, that
I
makes
think
sense.
that's the only real reason.
Yeah, but
It could be
their
that.
album came out late in the year, which
Yeah.
I think maybe they've done before, which also Wise Blood does every year. It seems like she releases uh, a record right at the end of the year, probably to get a little bit more top 20 attention,
You think
or
that's how it
top list
works?
attention.
Yeah, there is
I think it
recency. I
might.
definitely think
That's
there's
what I would do.
recency bias. There's recency bias when you're thinking it like, stuff. There's some things that were released towards the beginning of the year that
You just forget about it.
you might not even remember.
Yeah,
Like you might, oh, that was still this year. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, especially for people like us, where we're constantly pushing ourselves to listen to new stuff. Uh, you
Mhm.
know, and if I didn't keep such great track of everything, I probably would forget about a lot of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
I need to keep a little bit better track myself. That's why I forget. Like I do kind of try to keep lists of things, but
yeah.
it doesn't always work out.
I think so.
Yeah.
You just let me know. I can take some notes for you. I'll be your intern. But no, yeah. So yeah, I mean the opinion has changed. I probably would rank the Beths a little lower at this point, and always a little higher.
Yeah, like I could see the best being higher on my list.
Yeah.
Depending on any given day.
Every year, towards the end of the year, I always go through and I look at other top 20s or top 100s or whatever. So I have Pitchfork. I hit the big ones up. I even hit, like Rolling Stone, even though I don't, have a lot of respect for them. But I just want to see what other people are enjoying so I can compare what I'm listening to up against it. Do you do that too? Do you check out Pitchfork or any of that
So,
shit?
so I purposefully tried to do the list before those lists, before I
Because you
see
don't want to
those
be
lists.
influenced.
Yeah, but that also means that I'm doing it maybe too early. You know what I mean? Like I probably made
Yeah.
my list or was started working on it at the beginning of the month of December. So and you know,
Yeah.
um,
Well, that's the best yearly cadence to it because everyone stops releasing records
most
in
for the most
November.
part, yeah, for the most
And
part,
I
yeah.
mean, that's always the way it's been. Um, I always remember in the music department it being a real sparse month, the month of December. I mean, everyone's off like,
Yeah, just I mean, really,
vacation.
December and January are pretty light, and then there's
Yep.
an explosion after that
Yep. Yep.
of releases.
Yeah. So I don't know. And like you were saying, the opinions change. I'll actually go into a list from 10 years ago and throw in a record just for my own personal knowledge. I'll switch out a record for a list 10 years ago. I did that with the Kato record from like 2004 or something like that. I just, eventually you don't get to this shit in the year that it comes out every single time. So you stumble upon something and it's brilliant and it's from 10 years ago and
That's why I hesitate to even to even
get
do
into that. It's
to
just too
even
much
to
work.
even make a list at all
Yeah.
because I feel like it's out of date by the time in this case with the way that I do it where I'm actually posting a video
Yeah.
between the time I make the list and the time the video goes up, it's already out of date as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, I'm
But it's
in
kind
full
of an
awareness.
exercise, and I feel like it
Yeah.
can be interesting to some people. It's interesting to look at your list and see stuff that I haven't even listened to, right? And I think when I don't know, when you go to like a blog, like or even Pitchfork or whatever, and see things in their list, it's interesting beyond the rankings, if that makes sense. It's interesting to
It
see
is.
somebody liked this, or if you're watching my video, oh, this douche liked this, and I've never even heard of that. Maybe you're going to be interested and check it out on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Probably not, but maybe.
I go through the Pitchfork list and I'll sort of assess whether or not it's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, year by year, less and less of my thing in there. A lot of R&B. I don't really listen to a lot of R&B,
Yeah, yeah,
a lot
they've
of rap.
really
Um,
tried to be more like have more genres represented, I think, than they
yeah,
did in the past.
yeah.
Which is fine. I don't have
They're
a
very they're very indie rock at the beginning, but yeah, it's become
mm-hmm.
more just indie everything, or not indie anything anymore. I mean, what isn't Beyonce on the list? I feel like Beyonce is always on the list for them, um,
Yeah, there's
as
certain
number one.
they have their favorites for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
All right, so that I guess unless you have anything to add.
no, I mean, I always have questions. I'm always curious about other douches, snobs, nerds, how everyone these days in this digital age absorbs all this crap. So
Yeah, I'm starting to think that the people that listen to albums is kind of a dying
Oh
breed.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's
Short
people
attention
Spotify,
spans.
Apple Music, just adding one song at a time, and I just can't do it. Like,
I feel like even one song is too much. I feel like they want
yeah,
15-second.
they want the 15 seconds.
They want the best 15 seconds of
Yeah.
that song.
The easiest to dance with segment on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah,
Something like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, I feel like you've talked me into maybe not making a list in the future.
Just no list at all.
No list, just go no list, or maybe just or just
That wasn't my intention.
here's some albums I like, and in no particular order.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that.
Do that.
Yep.
No,
Or top 20,
they get
100 respectable additional listens, something like that. But yeah, before we go, I just wanted to dig in a little bit on so you're actually finding decent records at Goodwill.
no, almost never.
No,
And
almost
well,
never.
I
Okay,
mean,
but you still
I,
go.
I did recently run into, like, it runs in streets. I actually don't go to Goodwill. If you go back maybe a decade or more, you could.
Yeah,
You went to, if you weren't frequently, you would find stuff regularly. Now, and I made a video where I went to 20 Goodwills in one day.
I
I
don't
had,
even know how.
and literally, like, one store had a bunch of interesting stuff that all probably came from the same person. So I probably just
Yep,
like hit the jackpot basically at one,
yeah,
and every one other one was
it came from the same dead
99%
person
garbage. Yeah,
where
likely
someone was
the
cleaning up their
same.
house.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The people that are successful at it, they're going all the time. They're going
yeah,
nonstop. And yes, and maybe they know somebody, so they know when things are going out. I don't know. But if you go all the time, you can find stuff. I don't I don't have the patience. Every once in a
yeah.
while I will I'll go to a few, or here or there, but generally speaking, no. 5 years ago, I would go more often and I would find stuff
Yeah.
more often. Not necessarily even stuff that I want, but maybe something to flip. Um, Although not too much with that.
Do you do that? Do you buy
Not too
records to
much.
sell them?
Sometimes,
You do. Okay.
it used to be you could find like Fleetwood Mac rumors at a
Yeah.
Goodwill, and you could sell that easily. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely. Yeah.
it's also crazy the prices that Goodwills are asking. Like sometimes they'll be trying to sell crappy records for $5. Like who's bad condition,
Yeah. Well, they don't have the
undesirable
awareness and
title.
they're not spending any time
Yeah,
to check Discogs, which I'm assuming is what most record stores do these days. Because you get I don't know if you've ever used the app or been on the website, but you can look up
mm-hmm.
by whatever the weird manufacturer number is, and it will tell you a range of how much it goes for on average.
Yeah, you're gonna get me to go down the rabbit hole that we don't have time for with the pricing on Discogs, because if you actually dig into where they're coming up with those, probably isn't what you think. It's like,
It's most likely people selling them on the Discog site, right?
well, that's what that should be, but it's like
Sorry, I'm pulling you into the rabbit hole.
it's like it's a certain range,
Yeah,
and it doesn't take into account things. People will sell a signed copy of an album for
yeah,
$100, and that's going to throw
true.
everything off when that isn't really what the listing is. There's that kind of stuff that
Yeah,
goes on, but it's also if something doesn't sell a lot, it's only, and it's the last
the
X
numbers
number.
aren't accurate.
It could be
Yeah,
over the course of 3 years, and really the only ones that are accurate are the more recent ones. There's a lot of that kind
yeah,
of weird stuff going on.
yeah. I'm just saying it because I can notice sometimes when I go to a record store, especially like a half price books,
Mm-hmm.
where you have people that maybe aren't record aficionados. They're not experts or anything. They're just looking it up on a computer to figure out what to put it out on as, and you can kind of tell, oh,
they're using Discogs.
Yeah, no,
because it's in that range.
For sure, there's places that do that.
Yeah.
Many places that do that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Right.
more rabbit holes for future episodes. Hopefully you have me back. We can bullshit more. But I appreciate you having me on. And
yeah, thanks
good
for
to see you.
stopping by.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the future, maybe we can do maybe there's a release and we can go head to head on it, as something comes out in the future.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I liked all the shit you had on yours, for the most part. You get into the instrumental stuff more than I do. For me, I have to have lyrics.
Yeah, a lot of people that's the case.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Cool.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.